Welcome to International Definition. My name is Kenneth Freelain, and I'm going to be your host for today's edition of International Definition. Today on International Definition, we're going to feature the Engineering Careers Symposium here on the Tacoma Park / Silver Spring campus of Montgomery College. Our guest today is Bill Primosch, and he is the president of the SEIU Local 500. That's a union which he's going to be telling us about. Bill, it's good to have you on the show.
Ken, thank you very much for inviting me. I'm delighted to be here and have this opportunity to talk with you today about what part-time faculty are interested in, the contributions we make, and also about our part-time faculty union here at Montgomery College.
How does what happened here at Montgomery College relate to higher education in America in general?
I think the issues that we're raising through our union at Montgomery College are issues that are widespread and common in many colleges, both community colleges and four-year colleges around the country. Over the past weekend, the Service Employees International Union sponsored a conference for part-time faculty here in Washington through the Coalition for Academic Labor, in which we had an opportunity to hear the experiences of part-time instructors in New Jersey, in California, in North Carolina, a number of different colleges around the country. And it was amazing how, unfortunately, part-time faculty have the same kinds of issues: the lack of recognition, the lack of support, the lack of compensation on an equal level with their full-time counterparts. So I think what happens at Montgomery College is in effect going to be a kind of model, not only for our broader metropolitan area, for the state of Maryland. We have many community colleges, almost all do not have part-time faculty unions, and I think other colleges around the country are going to look to us to see how we can succeed in not only improving support for part-time faculty, improving their compensation, but also, and I think this is, I want to stress this, is our goal is the same as the goal of full-time faculty and of the college administration. We want student success. We want to be able to work as a team with all parts of the college to enable students to succeed not only academically, but also in their careers. And I think this cooperative relationship between the union and the college can help do that.
And you realize this is the Engineering Careers Club. You mentioned careers. You want to see that the students can, after they graduate, can go out into a professional field and find success. What factors would tend to interfere with communications between various adjunct faculty members?
The challenge we have as adjunct faculty, as part-time instructors, is that we are coming to campus at different times. We don't have an office. It's very difficult to get everyone together on campus at the same time. So we have to rely on email communication. We're also now examining how we can better use social media, which so many of our younger part-time faculty feel comfortable with. But that is a challenge. How do you communicate with instructors who are coming and going at different times, who don't have, in some campuses, there isn't even an adequate place for them to meet on campus. So this is a real challenge, and we're working on that. We're trying to develop some more innovative ways, and actually this can be part of it, is having this opportunity to meet with you and to talk with your engineering club, your engineering careers club, and reach out to students and other faculty involved in the engineering departments.
Very good. Would you say that there is some financial difference in the levels of compensation which are received by adjunct faculty members as opposed to full-time faculty members?
Ken, this is an objective reality, and it's not only at Montgomery College, it's at most community colleges as well as full-time, four-year universities. Part-time faculty are paid about 50%, sometimes as low as 30%, what a full-time faculty member would receive for teaching the very same course to the very same standards. And frankly, this just doesn't fair. And it is not only unfair, but it doesn't provide the kind of incentive you need to have a stable faculty, a stable group of instructors who will commit to the teaching profession over the long term. And there are a lot of different reasons why instructors choose to teach part-time rather than full-time. Some do not want to teach, so they have family responsibilities. Perhaps they have a career that they want to also pursue. So there are a lot of different reasons, but compensation is a glaring difference between full-time faculty and part-time faculty, and that needs to be addressed if we're going to have a high-performing institution of excellence over the long term.
You know, there's this dichotomy, this separation of good versus bad, right versus wrong, fair versus unfair, the just as opposed to the unjust. And people naturally tend to think of unions as being in a good position to address those differences, because that dichotomy has been around ever since human beings have been organized into working units. Even before the unions were originated, there were people who would exploit their workers, take advantage of, a country wins a war, so they get one country subject to their will. The empires specialized in exploiting the labor of the people who were vulnerable. So we tend to think of the unions as being in a position to kind of create a level playing field for everybody. It was, I'm sure you can remember Cesar Chavez, who, he used to point out the hardships of the farm workers. And would you see the unions as being in a position to kind of make the world a better place, a little more equitable for everybody? Do you see a need for that balance?
There is a need for that balance, and unions provide that opportunity for groups to organize and to have influence and power. Ken, I had a career as a diplomat at the U.S. State Department, but following that, I was involved with a business organization and did lobbying not only at the White House, but on Capitol Hill and with government agencies. And one of the things that became sharply clear to me as I was doing this work was how important it is to have an organization stand behind you so that people will listen to you and take you seriously. And many college administrations have said to part-time instructors, we understand there's a problem, we have to do something about it, but unless you have an organization behind you, and a good one like the Service Employees International Union, it's one thing for people in power to express sympathy, it's another to address the grievances and put the kind of organized pressure that is needed to get people in power to take you seriously. And that's why the unions are so important, whether it is at the workplace, in a factory, or whether it is among part-time faculty at a college.
You can be right, but if nobody listens to you, what's the point?
That's right. You have to be organized to be taken seriously, and I think that is the lesson of our history as a country in terms of how our economy has evolved and how labor has evolved over the years.
What happened at the recent meeting of the Coalition for Academic Labor?
we had a meeting, a very productive and interesting meeting over the weekend at the headquarters of the Service Employees International Union. And those were representatives of part-time faculty from around the country. And I found it particularly revealing how so many of the experiences were very common among the different colleges, not only community colleges, but also four-year universities, of part-time faculty who were compensated at much lower rates than the full-time faculty, not having the kind of support they need to be good instructors, office space, access to computers, space to meet with students privately. This came up repeatedly, and my conclusion, and I think the conclusion of many of the participants of that conference, is this was not only unfair, but it hurts the students, because we're not able to devote the kind of attention and we don't have the kind of resources that we need to serve them. And I think that's something that came through very clearly in our meetings over the weekend.
Now, I'm sure you've heard of the document entitled "The Culture of the Engineering Profession." Do you plan to read that document?
We have just had a chance to talk about it before our interview here, and it sounds like something which is a very interesting document and relevant not only to those in the engineering field, both students and to engineering faculty, but I think faculty more broadly, as it provides insights into how important it is to understand the workplace culture and the professional culture to really succeed in your line of work. And I'm looking forward to reading that document. And my own career experience over many years really has driven home to me how important it is when you enter a profession to understand the culture of that profession so that you can succeed not only in career sense, but also that you can make your best contributions, because you know how people interact with one another, you know relationships, you understand the values of the organization. And that's very important, whether it's in the engineering profession, whether it is, in my case, it was in the diplomatic profession. And every profession has its culture, and your ability to succeed and contribute in that profession depends very heavily, I think, on your understanding of that culture. So I'm looking forward to reading that document.
Very good. One thing I noticed, you pointed out that both full-time and adjunct faculty members have a commitment to the students. You are concerned about the well-being of the students, because the students are really the reason that the institutions are organized, is to produce graduates that can go out and perform in the economy. So would you say that adjunct faculty members are accepted into the academic culture of the educational profession? Let's assume that education is a field that we can regard as being a profession. Would you say that adjunct faculty members are accepted into the culture of the educational profession?
Unfortunately, Ken, I think that's still a problem, and we've discussed it a bit already, but there is this sense among part-time faculty that they're not quite, even though they may have been teaching for years, have been very successful in their teaching, have been very effective in their teaching, somehow because they're part-time, they're not real instructors, they're not real faculty, they're something a little bit less. And sometimes it comes across in subtle ways, the fact that your name isn't on the department website, for example, that you're not invited to department meetings to share your experiences with students. And that's really so important for the departments to know, since in many departments we teach more than half the courses. So not having that opportunity to share our experience, to provide our insights, to have the kind of simple recognition of having our names on a department website, there is that sense that we're really not part of the team. And I think a lot of part-time faculty really feel badly about that.
Yeah, because it says that they haven't been perceived as important enough to be included.
That's right, that they're not really part of the college educational community. They're just hangers-on of some sort. And I know no one would say that, but that's the feeling many of us have when we experience these little subtle discriminations in the workplace.
Yeah, they'll sort of give you a put down without deliberately coming out and saying that they're doing it.
That's right.
That they're
yes.
doing it. And again, we go back to this whole question: fair versus unfair. The dichotomy, right versus wrong. The fact that someone may try to create a justification and say, well, you don't work as hard, you don't put in as many hours as full time. But the fact is that with a union, you can come in and make a stronger case than you could as an individual.
I think that's the key point. The union provides that opportunity to have a voice in a more powerful way than an individual could have. And we have recognition, and I think, again, I want to express our appreciation to Dr. Pollard for being so open and for communicating a sense of partnership with the union and with part-time faculty. And that has been very helpful to us here at Montgomery College. I just want to add one thing to what you said, though, Ken, about this sense of what is fair and unfair. That is part of it, but the sad aspect to being unfair is that it doesn't provide the kind of support to part-time faculty that they need to help the students. So that it's not just something, the fact that you have this unfairness in the system, it's not something that just hurts part-time faculty personally, but directly or indirectly, it affects the students and it affects the ability of part-time faculty to help students succeed. And I think that is the sad part about this unfairness and this sense of inequality between full-time and part-time faculty, is that it actually hurts the students and not just the part-time faculty.
Well, we all know that college tuitions have increased dramatically over the last few years. What if a person is concerned about the increase in salaries causing an increase in tuition? A person could say that they're against paying anybody more money on a college campus because that would cause tuitions to go up.
And I think that's a legitimate concern of students. And one of the issues that we discussed at our Coalition for Academic Labor conference over the weekend was the enormous debt that so many students have incurred going to college and trying to get a college degree. And I think the average for students who complete 4 years or have a bachelor's degree is now getting close to $30,000 in debt, which is a lot of money, and many students going to private schools incur much higher debt. I think we have to look, though, at the supporters of colleges, and in most cases, most students go to state institutions, publicly supported institutions. We have to look at our political leaders to say and tell them that college is an investment. You don't, when you build a road, you build it to last for decades. Our Beltway was built something like 50 years ago. It has served the whole area well. It had cost an enormous amount of money. The amount of money that might be needed to improve compensation for part-time faculty is actually not, I don't have the percentage, it is not a huge amount of money. It will require some additional funding, but we have to convince our political leaders that this is an investment. And it's not just an investment for fairness, it's an investment in an institution which is going to help our students succeed, help our community succeed, to help Montgomery County become, as it already is, among the top county economies, not only in the region, but in the entire country. So this is an investment that our political leadership has to make. And yes, it's going to cost them more, but they have to understand that there will be a payoff. It's not just a question of fairness, although that is an important issue, but it's an investment for the future of the community and for the future of the young people growing up in this community.
Sometimes people are slow to catch on. I actually interviewed an elected official in Annapolis one year during National Engineers Week. And as I'm sure you know, National Engineers Week was established by the National Society of Professional Engineers. The National Society of Professional Engineers is now over in Alexandria. They're now located in the metropolitan Washington, D.C. area. But this elected official failed to make any analysis of any situation that would be of interest to the engineering profession. And I asked myself, now what is going on here? There must be more than meets the eye. We depend on these elected officials to lead the country. We hope that they're taking us in the right direction. But very often they are not. Very often you get people who may win an election, but once they've won the election, they either sell out or they become corrupt or they fail in their duties, or for some reason they just don't make the right decisions that are best for the country. And so you're hoping that you can get elected officials to see this. Well, that would be good if you can do it. That would be nice work if you can accomplish that. Yeah. But it's often uphill. Frequently, it's hard to reach the people who need to understand what you're saying.
I agree, and certainly the political gridlock we have in Washington is symptomatic of that. And I think what this underscores, Ken, is the need for those of us, whether it's part-time faculty, full-time faculty, and I would particularly note students as well, to be politically involved and to hold our elected officials accountable for focusing on the issues and not just expounding rhetoric for political gain. And we have to hold our elected officials accountable. And I think particularly students, this is an incentive for them to become even more politically active, because there are so many students. I have 3 sons who were not politically active. I would always encourage them to vote. Sometimes they did, sometimes they didn't. I don't think young people realize how important it is for them to know the candidates, to vote for in the elections, and to hold the elected officials accountable, because they have actually the potential for a lot of influence. And they have an awful lot at stake, Ken. The challenges of our young people today, when I talk about this in my class, I talk about global environmental problems, I talked about competitiveness and jobs, we look at conflict around the world, and they have enormous issues which in their generation they have to deal with. And I think it's absolutely critical that they become involved and hold our elected officials accountable for making the best kinds of analysis, to stay focused on the issues, and to think of their futures and not just of the immediate political gain from some inflammatory rhetoric.
Right, right. Well, our guest today has been Bill Primosch. He's the president of the SEIU Local 500. And he's been giving us some information that pertains not only to engineering faculty members, of course engineering faculty members, but all faculty members in general. His particular emphasis is on the adjunct faculty members. I hope you've enjoyed our program today. I'm glad that you were able to join us for today's edition of International Definition. And now, until our next broadcast, I'm your host, Kenneth Freelain, thanking you for joining us today.
Thank you, Ken.
Thank you. It's good to have you on the show.